Sure. My name is Brianne Wegter, and I'm a teacher at Sauk Rapids Rice High School. We are a town just outside of St. Cloud, Minnesota, in central Minnesota. We have about 1,400 students this year, and yeah, we've been using GIS in our schools now for about 5 years, which is exciting. I teach social studies and including human geography, world history, US history, and social problems.
So I guess my question would be, how did you find out about ArcGIS online, and then how did you actually learn how to use it?
I actually found out about ArcGIS online when I started teaching at this high school. A colleague of mine, Aaron Johnson, had been experimenting with it and said we should go to this training, this educator day, which happens the LIS GIS educator day. And so we went, and that was my first exposure to anything ArcGIS online. And it was just fascinating to me. And I thought it was a really powerful tool that would be great for students. So I learned a little bit there about how to use it, and then a lot more from just kind of going in and exploring myself at first. But then I attended a few MAGE sponsored week-long things during the summer that were GIS related, as well as some other GIS summer trainings, and then continued to go back to that educator day and keep learning more as they create more advanced courses or sessions there.
So there is a learning curve. It isn't something that you can just automatically just start using without having some training. Is that kind of unless you're going to use pre-made like geo inquiries?
Right. I think the geo inquiries are are usable, and then they can, they're able to get your feet wet, so to speak. But as I wanted to continue to make it more rich for my students, the trainings really helped me do that. I was using it with students in my class, though. I was using GIS with students in my class before I really felt super comfortable with it myself. We were learning a lot in the classroom together. So, I'm like, I think it can do this. Let's try it. And the student figure it out, show the rest of us how to do it, and I would learn, and we would learn together. So that worked for me, even though it felt really uncomfortable, because I am a kind of a person that likes to be planned and know how to troubleshoot everything. But with GIS, I decided it was powerful enough that I had to bring it to the students even before I felt ready, because it was that cool of a tool.
Well, that's great. I admire you for doing that, kind of jumping off the end of the dock and seeing if we can swim approach. What were some of the hurdles that you faced in just getting it to the kids and getting started and that type of thing?
So my colleague Aaron Johnson, who I had mentioned, did a lot of the actual organization account setup. So he took care of a lot of that. So in terms of getting our students access to it, it was no problem for me because a colleague had taken care of it for us. And from what he said, it was pretty easy to get that organizational account, to apply for it and get it set up. In terms of actually using the product, some of the hurdles are working with students to troubleshoot through different random problems. So for example, sometimes when they're trying to put an image on a map pin, the link that they went to use wouldn't work. So then to try to figure out which was the correct link to use that ArcGIS would read and be able to convert into an image on their map, took a little bit of time to get used to. And so those just kind of techie hurdles happen a lot, but again, students were able to help me through that, and eventually I felt really comfortable and feel pretty comfortable with many of the tools in ArcGIS Online.
And I just might want to add for people watching that ArcGIS Online was not designed specifically for use in a classroom. It's an actual GIS technology that's used in business and industry by trained professionals. So students are actually learning a fairly high level piece of software that potentially in the future they may actually be able to use in a business setting or in there as a career opportunity.
Yeah, and that
Uh,
is definitely one of the reasons why we decided to incorporate GIS into our curriculum, is because not only does it meet Minnesota standards in geography for 9 through 12 graders, but it does speak to a lot of like soft skills that will be beneficial to them in their life beyond high school, including like just knowledge of this kind of a software and building relationships and spatial analysis and perseverance through some difficult processes. So we feel it's really important to students in many different ways.
Sauk Rapids Royce set a national record last year. You had, I just checked, 225 students who submitted to you as teachers an entry that could have been competition worthy. My experience around the state and around the country is most schools are lucky if they get 10 or 20 total entries. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided basically to incorporate the competition as a part of your regular curriculum?
Sure. Where do I start with that, huh? As I mentioned, we believe that, and we see that GIS does meet many standards in our geography curriculum. And the Minnesota on the Map contest specifically kind of allows us to drive some of the accomplishments of those standards. Additionally, it's fun. It's a little bit like more, they feel like there's some stakes attached to the work that they do. And so a lot of the students get really excited with the potential of winning money or those types of things. But some of the other skills that we think are really important, specifically with this competition, is it lets the students kind of design a project from beginning to end. They choose their topic, they decide how they're going to organize it, they decide what questions that they're going to ask and try to answer through their story that they're telling. And so it really does take a lot of like organizational skills. It takes a lot of thinking ahead. It takes a lot of, well, I got this far into it, but I didn't get the answer I expected. Why not? And then it drives even more inquiry that they themselves are creating. And so words are not coming to me. It interweaves like the geography skills that they're getting, but also those real world experiences that will build their character and build their understanding of how to design projects and how to persevere until they reach something they're proud of. So it's been a really great, it's developed into this project where we can take all of our freshman students and have them work to create something really cool and participate in this contest. I wish I could pick more than 5 to be able to send on, because this
Yeah.
year especially we had a lot of really amazing projects.
Yeah, well, you had the top 4 of the top 5 in the state for the high school division. So
Yes,
that's
we're very proud of
congratulations on that.
that. Thank you.
So I think you've kind of already answered this question, but looking at from the student point of view, what's the biggest benefit a student gets out of not only learning ArcGIS online and GIS, but participating in the competition? I think you kind of answered it, but do you want to say anything additional related to
I
that?
think just that I just think the idea of designing their own project and what it takes to bring something from the beginning to the end. And then maybe one of my students emailed me this past summer and she's like, I just added this to my map because I learned about it and I thought it was cool. I was like, awesome. So it drives, they get to choose the topic, so they're interested in it. They benefit from that growth of their interest and looking at it spatially, making connections they might not have realized were there. And that, I think, really helps them connect the world to their interests. And so maybe a little bit more globally minded after the project. We can hope anyway.
So I'm assuming there's some teachers watching this who have very little GIS background or maybe none. what kind of words of encouragement would you give them to say, go ahead and give this a try when the competition rolls around? Well,
Sure. I mean, when I started, I did that like ArcGIS 5x5. It's a pre-created activity, and that's basically how I learned the basics of ArcGIS online. And we do that with all of our students at the beginning of the year too, with our freshmen, just to kind of remind them like these are the very basics. And every year I get stronger at it, and therefore my students benefit more. But I don't think that my students 4 years ago were hurt by my at this point lack of knowledge at that time. They were still able to get their hands on a tool, learn some things from it, and really get to see connections spatially, which is a skill in of itself. So I will say it was really scary for me as a teacher to do that because I wasn't comfortable with the technology. But at some point, you just gotta to dive in, and students will impress you with their own ability to troubleshoot and help solve problems with you. And I think that idea of, I think the students appreciate, like, this is a really cool tool. And many businesses, almost every business uses GIS somewhere. And so you're giving them a real world skill that they'll want to learn, and they'll appreciate you trying, even if it's not perfect all the time.